Hello and welcome to Spinster's Library. I'm Claudia and today I'm doing the Jane Austen July Tag. Sorry, it's another Jane Austen video, but it is Jane Austen July. If you're a little bit fed up with my Jane Austen content, then I recommend checking back on this channel in August when the whole Jane Austen madness is over and I will go back to talking about other 19th century classics. For now though, we're still in the middle of it, and something I keep forgetting to mention in my Jane Austen related videos is that I actually put together a playlist of Jane Austen July 2019 videos. So you'll find that linked in the description box if you want to look at what else I've done this Jane Austen July. So this tag was created by Marissa from Blatantly Bookish. She said that she co-created this with Katie from Books and Things. They are the two founders of Jane Austen July. They organised all of this, and I'll definitely link Marissa's video in the description box. At time of recording, I haven't actually seen Katie's tag video yet, so she hasn't released it yet, but if she has by the time I upload this, then I'll link that down below as well. I was kindly tagged by Marissa, so thank you very much for that. She knows just how much I love talking about Jane Austen. So let's get started with the questions. Question 1. Is an easy one. What is your favourite Jane Austen book? And there is only one answer to this, and it is Pride and Prejudice. I love this edition, this beautiful edition from, I believe, the 1980s that my friend and guest spinster Robin found in the charity shops for me. And Pride and Prejudice is the best Jane Austen book. There's just no arguing about this. It is so perfectly written. It's got the best characters, it's got the best romance, it's got the best tension plot. I mean, it's got about 1 million plots all intertwined so beautifully in one fairly short novel. So if you have not read Pride and Prejudice, then what are you even doing with your life? Get on it. I can also highly recommend the audiobook, by the way, read by Rosamund Pike, which makes the archaic language a little bit more easy to digest. Either way, Pride and Prejudice is just perfect, and I think what makes it such a classic, such a favourite classic, is that the story, the, I guess, hate to love trope, as we call it in book Twitter and Bookstagram nowadays, that trope is one that we are so familiar with, but at the same time it's done in such a perfect way. And it is a very satisfying trope, you know, you get the two characters, Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet, and they don't get on, and the reason why they don't get on is very natural. It's explained, it's part of their character in a very logical way. So it doesn't feel like when you watch some modern rom-coms and it's so artificial the way that the main characters hate each other for no apparent reason. Whereas in this, their initial dislike is based on their characters, but also their circumstances in which they are thrown together. And I think that is so beautifully done. This is the perfect book. This is... Okay, I could go on about this forever, but you get the point. Read Pride and Prejudice, it's the best of Jane Austen's works, and it's one of the best books ever written. Let's move on to question 2. Who is your favourite Jane Austen protagonist? Now, I love Lizzie Bennet, don't we all? But my favourite protagonist that I can identify with, whose actions I can sort of feel for, who I can really get into the headspace of, is Eleanor Dashwood from Sense and Sensibility. She is the sense in Sense and Sensibility, and I totally get her tendency to bury emotions, to try and be there for everyone else emotionally, but, you know, not actually talk about your own problems to anyone. I mean, one big part of the book is that she keeps her secret so close to herself that she doesn't even tell her sister, who she's very close to. And I'm exactly the same. I don't really talk to people about my problems, about my emotions. However, there's one other Jane Austen protagonist who I really love, even though I don't think we are that alike, and that is Catherine Morland from Northanger Abbey. The reason why I love her as a character is because she is the ultimate fangirl. There's a bit of Catherine Morland in all of us. She loves novels, she loves reading, and she really gets into the world that she explores through her books. And I mean, you and me, we know that, right? We know that feeling of getting so much into a book that you want the world around you to be like that book as well. I love you. here. Say hello. Yeah, I know the desk is covered in books. There you go. Question 3. Name a book off your shelves that you think Jane would wholeheartedly approve of and why. And actually this is not a very obvious choice. My pick for this is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. And if you're familiar with the book, then you might not find many similarities to Jane Austen's work. But I think if you look at the themes that are explored in Rebecca, they are very similar to the themes that Jane Austen explores in her own literature. For example, class and how class affects romantic relationships. There is also the whole keeping of secrets and again, how secrets affect relationships between people. Jane Austen's work is so brilliant because of the way she explores human relationships, and that's romantic relationships, sibling relationships, parent and child relationships. And I think that Rebecca explores relationships in a very similar way and their effects on people. I hope any of that made sense. So even though the tone and the plots and the characters are very different, I think the themes that are explored are very similar in Rebecca and in Jane Austen's works. Question 4. Name a book off of your shelves that you think Jane would have hated and why. Now, it would be very easy for me to pick any book that I've read and didn't like, and then say that Jane Austen would have hated that book too. But I set myself the challenge of finding a book I love, but I think Jane Austen would really hate. And my pick for that is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This is one of my all-time favourite novels. I love this book so much. But I think Jane Austen would have no patience for Oscar Wilde's writing. Her characters, at least the ones that we are meant to like, all have an inner truthfulness, all have a way of honest expressions. She's all about communication and about solving problems. And Oscar Wilde's characters are barely even people. They're caricatures. They're more like a philosophical concept than a real person. Dorian Gray doesn't exist. Lord Henry Wotton doesn't exist. Sybil Vane doesn't exist. All of the characters that are at the heart of this book are little more than concepts. They're very deep concepts. They're not flat or two-dimensional, but they are not real people. And I think Jane Austen's work is very much based on real people, even though, of course, for comedic effects, she also exaggerates their personalities. But I think she would have very little patience for the artifice in Oscar Wilde's writing. Question 5 is a very difficult one to answer. Who is your favourite minor Jane Austen character? Jane Austen absolutely excels at writing minor characters. So let me just name some favourites from my favourite book, Pride and Prejudice. Lady Catherine de Bourgh, the ultimate old rich bitch. I love her so much. Mr. Collins. Oh, I mean, you cringe while reading about him. He is just hilarious. The Bennet parents, wonderful set of parents there, both wanting different things for their children. The dialogue between them is absolutely hilarious. Charlotte Lucas, I think she's a very underrated character in Pride and Prejudice, but actually she is so real. There are so many Charlotte Lucases even today, people that you can sort of feel for, that have to make the best with what they have and maybe make decisions that we judge them for, but actually that are right for them. Mary Bennet, gotta love Mary Bennet. She is my favourite Bennet sister, definitely. Tries too hard to impress people, doesn't even impress herself, no one really likes her. Oh, bless Mary Bennet. But my favourite minor character is actually from Emma, not from Pride and Prejudice, and that is poor old Miss Bates. She's a spinster, so I like her for that alone. But more than that, she is just so funny and also kind of tragic because she tries to please people. She's not a bad person. She just has a bad personality and it's not really her fault. And Emma behaves to her in a really bad way. She's not nice to her. And Miss Bates doesn't deserve that, despite being super annoying and unlikable. So I think Miss Bates is such a wonderful minor character, and one of my favourite parts in Emma is, and I'm going to try not to spoiler this, is when Emma really truly breaks her trust and the consequences of that behaviour. Question 6. Name a book of yourselves that you feel was somehow inspired by Jane Austen's body of work. I haven't actually got this one on my shelves because I gave it away, but I think that I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith is very heavily inspired by Jane Austen's work. The setup is very similar in that we have two sisters at the heart of this, and as you know, a lot of Jane Austen's work revolves around relationships between sisters. And then we have romantic entanglements, misunderstandings, issues of class and wealth. There's a bit of an eccentric family there as well. And this idea that you need marriage or romantic relationships to get out of a financially sticky situation, which was very, very relevant in the early 19th century, but it's a concept that Dodie Smith managed to update beautifully for the early 20th century when that book is set. So I can highly recommend I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith if you like Jane Austen and you want to try something that's similar, but just ever so slightly more recent. I mean, this was still written in the 1940s. I would also like to give an honourable mention to E.M. Forster, and he's actually the answer that Marissa gave to this question, I believe. Pretty much all of E.M. Forster's work feels heavily inspired by Jane Austen, and again, just modernised for the early 20th century, or well, turn of the century when he wrote them. Now we get to the last question, question 7. Which Jane Austen character do you simply love to hate? And oh my god, there are so many again. Jane Austen is wonderful at writing bad, annoying, horrible, evil characters. I mean, we can talk about all of the rakes, you know, from Wickham to Willoughby. We can talk about the evil matriarchs. So we've got Lady Catherine, we've got Mrs. Ferrars from Sense and Sensibility. There are a lot of characters that I love to hate, but my pick is, again, someone from Emma, and that is Mrs. Elton. Yeah, she is the baddest of the bad girls. Move aside Caroline Bingley, Mrs. Elton is here. I love the way she talks. I love the way she calls her husband Mr. E. I love how she tries to make everything about her, how she is so self-important, how she's so bitchy towards the other women. I think she's just such a funny character. And again, someone who's a little bit underrated when we talk about Jane Austen's bad girls. She's my favourite. So this was the Jane Austen July tag. Thank you to Marissa for tagging me and for creating this wonderful tag. I think this is really fun. I'm not going to tag any specific people, but please feel free to do the tag. I can't wait to see more responses to it and to see you gush about Jane Austen in a similar way to what I just did. I hope you have a wonderful second half to Jane Austen July. Expect plenty more Jane Austen content on this channel. And again, apologies to you if you don't like Jane Austen. Actually, if you don't like Jane Austen, you're probably not even watching by this point. I'm gonna go now. Thank you for watching. Bye.